Good afternoon, dear guests and participants of this meeting. We are happy to welcome you to this event organized by the Russian Znania Society and the Fisheries Agency. I am Natalia Gross, and today I will moderate this meeting. On the 21st of April of 2021, in his message to the Federal Assembly of Russia, President Vladimir Putin said that it was necessary to put the educational process on a digital platform to be able to maintain open dialogue in the most relevant areas. Today, we aim at decentralizing the educational process. Regional chapters of the Znania Society today operate in all the 89 constituent regions in Russia. We should not forget about the general educational tasks. We work in various areas, both online and offline. Just to mention a few of them, a project dealing with free online courses aiming at training various specialists, students, and so on. This project helps young specialists to be sure about their skills. And the next one is called the Lecture Room. This project aims at providing conferences for young people for their self-accomplishment in various areas, and in particular in documentary films. The participants watch documentary films, both new documentary films and documentary masterpieces. Today, we work under the project Knowledge to the State that was launched in 2022. The lecturers are outstanding scientists, leading companies, and successful entrepreneurs, various public figures. In 2023, 55 public authorities joined our project. Over 570 people have already attended our meetings, which will continue up to the end of this year. Well, dear guests, before we continue, I wanted to draw attention to the QR code displayed in front of you. And I'd like to ask the attendees to register, to log using this QR code so that we could know more about the attendance of this meeting. I hope everybody has done it now. Well, guys, every lecture, every intervention is always based on serious background. There are people who are afraid to take the floor. There are people who really do their best to get ready. Now, I'd like to introduce our first speaker to you, who will help you structure your presentations. So now I'm giving the floor to our first speaker. It is Nina Zvereva. She is a coach, a blogger. She has 11,000 subscribers on YouTube. and she will tell you how to take the floor, how to speak without getting nervous. In her presentation, she will focus on the 3 mistakes that can be made by presenters. Let's give an applause to Nina Zvereva. Well, is my microphone on? Can you hear me well? Okay. Well, certainly you have already given me an applause, but it was done just in advance. So I need to show to you that I was worthy of your applause. Now, while I speak, I suggest you take notes of your questions so that you could ask them after my presentation. So I'm Nina Zvereva. If I were to introduce myself to you within a minute, including those who have never heard, who have never listened to my presentations, it's certainly impossible to know everybody. Well, the highlights of my biography include the fact that I started working for TV at the age of 8, and now I'm 71. That means that for 63 years I have been linked with television as an interviewer, as a correspondent. I was awarded with the Taffy Awards twice. I also covered meetings with important people such as Bill Clinton and so on. I am telling myself that I'm quite lucky. I've been a reporter, I've been a journalist for most of my life, and so I found my career in the process of my work. I worked for the first private school in Russia. Before that, I was a reporter for the Russian Izvestia newspaper. I have trained 22,000 specialists from all the parts of Russia and from other countries. Various people started joining my courses. First of all, Sergei Kiriyenko, who was a banker at the time, came to one of meetings with me. He said, you've been teaching journalists how to ask questions, but you should train me how to answer questions. And that was how I understood that it's important to have a very good command of the Russian language. All of us badly need it, because no matter how hard we try to get the most of it, well, could you raise your hands, those of you who want to make a good career in your life? It's important when you raise a hand. It means that I want it and I will make it. My favorite verbs are as follows: I want and I can. They are interlinked. Those who want something should be able to achieve their aim. 30% of people from their birth are not afraid to speak in public, and it's easy for them to become masters of various ceremonies, including weddings and so on and so forth. They're not afraid of people in front of them. I wouldn't say that they are all of them ready for speaking in public. Moreover, of late there have been lots of charismatic people who have been joining my lectures because they want to improve their skills. People now cherish their time much more. I will ask you a question now. Please answer it. Who of you knows how to look at the people, to nod, to smile at the person, but without listening to them? So Which of you know how to smile at the people but think about something else? But this is really a kind of self-protection. But the fact that somebody else may do the same to you is something you don't like. So what's the matter? For instance, there is somebody who is ready to say something, and that person took the trouble to get ready for speaking, and the person understands quite well that leadership skills are very important. Some people speak very briefly, some others take their time to look at the people. We are all different, so the art of speaking in public is quite an individual gift. But I have been a lucky trainer, a lucky coach, because I know that it's possible to train people, because one verb was missing. If you want to learn something, you need to find your teacher. And if you want to teach people, you should know how to arouse people's enthusiasm. So it takes a lot of practice to be able to speak quite well. It won't be possible to keep a low profile. This is just something that you can do if you don't have to take the floor to master various meetings and so on.
And you understand that that may come at some point of time because you are afraid to do it now. 70% of people experience that fear. 30% of people are not afraid of public speech, as we know. I hope you know. You trust me as an expert, and that may be a bad sign because chatterboxes are not popular any longer. And 70% of people who have stage fright and who don't know what to start with, what are they to do? Unfortunately, this is not taught at school or university. But luckily, there are people who know these algorithms and can teach you. We have an online school, we have an online course, thanks to the Znanie Society, where the best lecturers, free of charge, speak every week. And most importantly, we have those 40 minutes in order to discuss 3 typical mistakes of every speaker, any speaker. The 3 mistakes of a presenter. That's the title of my lecture. We'll talk about mistakes. So, what are these? Let us show them. If I can. If you can. Okay. So, just think of what mistakes would you name, typical mistakes made by the presenters. What are they? Well, dark screen, no mistakes, probably. The first mistake is not only made by young specialists, but by anyone who is afraid to speak, is the wrong apprehension of the target, of the purpose, and that's a cardinal mistake. The wrong purpose. The person is going to speak. What's the purpose? Well, to make a report and to come down from the podium. Yes, quite often that is mentioned as the first one. To report. Yes, to report the result. To report an idea. That's a wrong purpose, because the purpose of reporting does not lead to the correct result. And the correct result of any public speech, a presentation, is related to what's happening with the listeners. You've reported and you left. Nothing happened with the audience. And that means that you stole your time, stole their time. Any presentation by any person is paid with time. And people value their time. There's 100 people here, and you've given me your time, the time of your life, and I value that. So in response, I must return some new knowledge to you, some advice. And maybe just make you enjoy it, so that you get something important during those 40 or 60 minutes. So what's the correct purpose? The report is wrong. So what's the purpose that is correct? What must happen? To keep the attention, yes, you've kept the attention. You left, there's no more attention. An idea? Any ideas? To get people interested. That's a good word. So, what else? What else? Emotions. Why do you want to get people interested? Why do you want to excite emotions in them? We need to teleport your ideas into other people's minds. Here's a riddle, my favorite one. It's not important what you said, it's what important what people, what sank in. Yes, I don't have my book to give it to you. It's important what sank in people's minds. I'll send you my book. I will get your contacts, because it's even better to say what people remembered, but those are synonyms. So it doesn't matter whether you speak about yourself, about your project, but this is a public speech. You pretend to other people's attention, but you need to provide some result, some product. And the result is that people are interested in what you're saying, and firstly, and most importantly, they will never remember it if it's not interesting to them. People will remember it if it's interesting. They will come home and retell your presentation. What's popularity? It's citations. If you are quoted, if people tell others about your presentation, that's great. It's not important what you said, it's important what people remembered. And what helps people remember? And now, if you could write it down or record it, it's important. I would be glad, because it will be difficult to understand. With our eyes get more information than our ears. So I will comment on the next slide. What helps people to remember? What are the speaker's tools? It's a structure. 3 bullet points for the ear, 5 for the eyesight. If I remove this slide, you will read it 5 times and you will only remember 3 bullet points. The ear easily remembers 3 elements. It's difficult to remember 5. So a person who said fourthly cuts off the audience. Never say fourthly, fifthly, and sixthly. It's Cicero who invented this, not me. He lived long ago and he was smart, and he understood that if a person says there are 3 issues, there are 3 things, 3 ideas, he's listened to. And if a person says there's a lot of interesting things, they are not listened to just as attentively. We will return to the structure once again, repeating the main thesis, the main idea. So at school we're taught that you don't repeat the same phrase many times. When you speak in public, a repetition of the main idea, the repetition of a lucky phrase, the repetition of what you started with by the end provides a very pleasant impression. Remember, please, that you must repeat your main idea several times. Experts in rhetorics, in eloquency, believe that you should do it 5 times. Fishing industry. And now it is undergoing a boom. With that, according to some sources, such valuable fish as tuna are at the end of their existence. We run out of them. And the idea is to make such food for fish, that feed for fish, so that the fish doesn't eat fish. Why I know this? Because there's a student of mine who is doing this mega project, because fish eats fish, but it can eat buyer food, special food, and that means that very valuable and wholesome fish will remain in the planet. And also it is very useful to the population of the planet. You want to tell about that. You want to tell people about that. That's what you should start with. There's a lot of fish in the ocean. Or is it? Is there? Let's see how much fish there was and how much fish there is, and let's see what happens in 50 years. Well, I'm 71, but when you're 18, do you think about it? And we have children and grandchildren, and then in 4 minutes you repeat it. Yes, there's a lot of fish. But unless we start thinking about the fact that fish eats fish and it could eat something else, and that's biomass, which is wholesome, it would have been better. And by the end, you say, yes, it seems to us that there's a lot of fish, and nobody will think that you are repeating things. The people will be on the same wavelength with you, and they will be thinking along your lines. So you must repeat the main idea. And of course, it's very important to be interactive. And whenever you prepare for the presentation, think about what questions to ask, what games to play. That's very useful, and gaming is part of education. You can devise a very interesting game and think about it, and people will split into teams and share their opinions, because people learn through their practice, their own practice. So you need to organize it. I have an elementary example of an interactive relationship with the audience when I just place red and green and yellow cards on their seats, and if people agree, they lift green, if not red, and if they don't know, then a yellow. So you can ask, why did you raise the green one? Why did you raise the red one? Why are you undecided? And a very interesting discussion is produced, because if you just talk to people, they will feel bored, and if they can express their opinion through those color cards, it will be interesting for them. That's only one way. These are numerous, but of course pictures and photos. So one guy has already received the book. Any of my books is yours. And now, a question. The presenter uses something to visualize. The eyes get much more information than the ears, the pictures, the objects, or the photos. What do the people respond to better? Objects, you said. Yes. You will come up and you'll give me your contact information. Why objects? Why objects? Why? When you can show something to the people that is always remembered, why? The attention will be locked to this object, and I can provide two examples from my own experience, from my individual training. One was a director of a plant in the Urals, and they had a 3D printer. That was Rosatom. They had a 3D printer, and he was happy to tell us how fast everything became. And he had to speak at a conference in Moscow. He showed a very boring presentation to me, very many items, very many words, a lot of graphs. We start to remove everything redundant. We start to build the structure. That's very important. And I say, Alexei, wait, you said you had a 3D printer. Show me something that you made with that 3D printer? Or is it the size of a building? That's a Rosatom plant, which is, yeah, they made a part which is very complex. Yes, it's an unbelievable thing used in NPPs, very complex. And he said with emotion, we have our best miller. It's only him that can do such things. It took him about half a year to do the same thing. The 3D printer used 16 days. Alexei, we have a good start. You bring this thing to Moscow, place it on the table, and you will ask people what that was. And then you show your best miller's picture, and tell people how he does. And when he is on a vacation, everything stops, because he is the only one who can do it. Now you have a 3D printer that can do it much faster and better. And after that, you will be talking about technical progress in your plant. The objects are very interesting, and you certainly have something to show. Think about it. What can you show? What can you hold in your hands? The second example is the governor of Altai region. He said, I don't know what to start with. And I was told by citizens from Altai that there are boulders along the road, and if you turn them, there will be 7 precious stones glittering. That's Altai to you. And I said, Oleg, that future governor, look for a gem. He found it, he placed it on the podium, and he said, you know what Altai is? The salaries are very low. Electricity is unavailable, the roads are bad, and we look like this gray stone. And that's what we look like in reality, and we must become like that. And I saw the people of the audience. That was a roadside boulder who reversed the impression from the presentation. So look for this boulder, look for this image, look for this, because it will be remembered. You cannot do without jokes, you cannot do without emotions, you cannot do without paradoxes. Paradox is a great thing. It's when you take two facts and they contradict one another. And all the people wonder how that may happen. Altai, for instance, I said, start with a paradox. Ask, how come the most educated republic in Russia, 2 higher educations at everywhere, the average age is 56. Why didn't you provide jobs for your children? It's a paradox. The best educated and the worst paid. So that's a paradox. People like that in your fishing industry, which is very complex and important, which is geopolitically important, there's a lot of things that surprise people, and these facts are only known to you because you deal with them. And it's of interest to us. So tell us about what's happening in your industry. What are people interested in? And there's the next very important slide. You can take pictures of the slides. That's very useful. You can use them. What is of interest to people? What do you listen to at a level of, I'm interested in it, I will listen to that, I can't but listen to this? Next slide, please. People listen if the conversation is about them, if the things that are talked about are needed, if something surprising and new is talked about, and if authorities and experts are talking, and if they're entertained. So I recommend to all of you to pay attention to this line. That means you need to introduce yourself. Maybe you're 18, but something may have happened in your life. You've read some books, you joined some university, you were seconded to some industry. If you present yourself to the people, people must understand why they have to listen to you. You need to introduce yourself so that you are remembered. so that your opinion is of interest to people. And you should take care of that. I'm really amazed at how people fail to present themselves. Well, we have done with the first mistake, with the wrong purpose. You shouldn't report. You should teleport your ideas into other people's heads. Your idea is for the people to remember you, so that they remember what you said. Maybe if you are bosses, commanders, and you are talking to your subordinates, these things they remember must turn into their actions. The second mistake is bad Russian. What does it mean? Bad Russian. Next slide. Look. This is a slide from the web. This is a Lego for bad speeches. You can start with any item and go any way. Whatever you speak about, this will be a complete gobbledygook and sound boring. Yeah, people are yawning already. And nobody will listen to that. Don't deceive yourselves. As soon as you say, I am a third-year cadet, well, the word является is wrong in the Russian language.
На железной дороге.
Then people from the railways come, or from the presidential office, or from any other area. If you say dear friends, means that you should find another word. Instead of saying dear friends, you may say good morning, good afternoon, etc., or find your special way of addressing the public so that the public should understand that you mean them in particular. So when you speak to students, for instance, you can say, well, guys, and it's okay, instead of just hello. And every word has a meaning and is important. So if you select the words just as if it were valuable food, then your speech will become much better. And the best sentence, I would say, includes only one word. So if you use just separate words, making pauses such as summer, canoa, guys, young people, children. I spoke only for 3 seconds, but one can easily visualize what I have said. If you say, if it is the ocean, then you can visualize a vessel. If it is a team, then it is the crew, and so on and so forth. If it is a disaster, it is something which may occur at sea because it's so dangerous. That is to say, you can find words that will find a response from the public. But if you say, we are implementing this task in a very challenging environment, will only make it boring. You should not use the words that come first to your mind. It should be those that you have to select. That is to say, be brief, be merry, and make yourselves understood. And when we speak to various people, we teach them how to select the precise words. So this is our food. There is no other food bricks. In the Russian language, there are 350,000 words. But how many words are normally used by normal persons? 30,000? No. It's from 5 to 7,000 words used daily by the people, and it's always the same words that make the people around them indifferent, and they do not work at all all, because it's similar to a material that you use thousands of times. That is to say, the dictionary includes 350,000 words, and we only use 5,000. So, first of all, you should try to record your presentation using a recorder. Try to speak also to the people who love you, to the people who respect you. And then you can ask them whether they enjoyed listening to you. And there are certain words that can only be used in the Russian language that are quite typical of the Russian language and that are difficult to find an equivalent in other words. If you look at the manuscripts of our outstanding writers and poets, I've seen manuscripts by Pushkin, Pasternak, many other leading writers and poets, and sometimes you can find a whole page in the manuscript where they kept crossing out a word several times to select the best one. For instance, to arrive at good verses, it takes a lot of words to be able, just like in the case of Boris Pasternak. You treat me as if I were a forest. You treat me as if I were a field. You treat me as if I were a wave, etc. This is by Martynov, another outstanding Russian poet. Poetry uses well-selected words, and this is typical of the Russian language, of Russian songs, etc. We are all Russian speakers, so if we start speaking beautifully, if we start speaking precisely, everybody will listen to us. That's why it's quite important to expand your vocabulary. To expand your vocabulary is not such a difficult task. You can, for instance, learn poems by heart, or you can also play various literary games, and you can find them on the web, and this would be quite helpful. Otherwise, it would be impossible to achieve anything. Apparently, people will be responding to your presentation, but your language will not be perfect. If you speak to the people, they will not listen to your words because they have heard them so many times. It is just like being treated with a dish that was cooked the day before yesterday. And then also it is important to pitch the correct word. That is to say, to select a word to be based on in your presentation. If, for instance, you are to speak on technology, and if you want to emphasize that we are lagging behind in a particular area, you may just start by putting down the verb lag behind. But then we need to show that we are lagging behind our competitors. Whether it's good to be lagging behind, no, it isn't. Just try to find examples of people who were poor school students, but then they became leaders in their career. Certainly, I'm similar to Don Quixote. People often speak quite boringly, and they do not want to understand that they are boring the audience and that people did not listen to them because the public was bored, because people are accustomed to having boring speeches. Yesterday I went to an inauguration event by the governor of Nizhny Novgorod. I don't know what the difference was between guests from Chelyabinsk Oblast or from Mordovia. All of them used the same words and their addresses were just the same, even though it was quite different people. Why was it that we wish you, we want to, we need to be friends, and so on? And so during the addresses, all the people in the room were playing the same electronic game using their smartphones. Some people had passed 6,000 levels, some others 2,000 levels, etc. So what happens is that people who are important to their region come to an event and they have something to say about their region. However, they don't care about it, and there is no smart person among the public to help them with structuring their speed. It is important to understand, first of all, that they only have 8 seconds for the introduction. You should just try to be laconic as possible, to present everything in a nutshell. And also it is important to use expressions that are easy to remember for the public. And the third mistake, once again, and we come back to the structure once again. Well, look, I was born and I have been living in Nizhny Novgorod, even though I travel to Moscow quite often, and I'm happy that I have never left Nizhny Novgorod forever, even though I travel extensively. I can tell you that Nizhny Novgorod is a very beautiful and ancient city, and I know a lot of facts from its history, and I could tell you a little bit about its current life, about developments there, and so on and so forth, and I can speak for a long time, but I would be boring you. And you will be sick and tired because you don't understand how will it all end and what will the end be like. And when people do not understand what the speaker is driving at, they are bored. If we were extending our ears when we listen, and then if they shrunk when we do not listen, that would be awful. The speakers then would know that there are lots of people in the room who are not listening to them. Those people who are not listening may be smiling at them, but are not thinking about the presentation. Every day we have around 50,000 thoughts of all kinds, but there are only around 3,000 thoughts that are useful to us and that we remember about. If I tell you that there are 3 things that make my native city, Nizhny Novgorod, from all the other cities in the world, that would be a good beginning. Then I would arouse your interest. And it means that I came well prepared for my presentation, that it is a kind of quiz, that there will be various things to mention, 1, 2, and 3. So what is the structure then? The structure is a well-organized thought. And when your thought just wanders around, nobody would listen to you if you don't care to structure your presentation in a clear way. So if I say the best structure, my structure, how can I structure my report if I am to report to my shareholders? I would say that my recommendation for all the speakers, starting from Churchill and many other speakers, Churchill wrote various books on how to properly structure one's presentation. He wrote, for instance, that he even though out of 28 letters of the English alphabet. He could not pronounce 23 letters quite well. So, but he worked a lot. So he owed his mastery to a lot of work that he did. So you should try and catch the people's attention. Churchill said that if I am to speak for an hour, it takes me 3 hours to get ready. If I am to speak for 5 minutes, it takes me 5 hours to get ready. And this is an ideal presentation. And 7 minutes is just really a perfect time. And it is really what we need. There is no things that we cannot report in 2 minutes if we are well trained. If there are 3 things in place that I want to tell the people about, there are 3 things that I want to mention, and there are 3 questions that I want to ask of the speaker, and then we understand that the person thought well. And when you look at a book and look at its table of contents, it means that you are looking for the most interesting things. If it catches your eye, then it helps you, and the structure helps the speaker himself because he can easily stick to it. But there are different structures. For instance, there are good mathematical structures. When you take the floor, then you make a statement, you prove that it is correct, and then you repeat it. Then there is another good structure. It was and it is now. For instance, what your life was before, what was like before, and what it is like now. This is another good structure that helps people to compare things. But if there is no structure in your presentation, you are doomed to failure. So 45 minutes. So what are the 3 mistakes of the presenter? First of all, it is when you want to report to the people instead of making your ideas the property of your audience, making them digest them. The second one is when we do not use precise word from the Russian language. Your words should be precise, and you should look for the best words. If you select your words in a proper way, then people will really respond to them properly. And thirdly, you should organize your ideas. You should make it possible for the public to understand you very easily. And there are a lot of options here. So these are the 3 things, the 3 mistakes that I wanted to warn you about. And now my 45-minute presentation is over, and I'm ready to try and answer your questions. And thank you for your attention. Well, guys, don't be too shy. Try to make the most of the time that you have now at your disposal. Yes, please. No microphone was on. Well, you should make the most of your voice. Everybody has a good voice inside. People respond very well to a low voice. You can make your voice lower by an octave if you take special classes. If I speak like this, you will get very tired of me quite soon. Lots of people speak incorrectly when they use high pitches. Even if I have a sore throat or any other throat disease, I should make the most to make my voice sounding quite well. Well, guys, sometimes it could be like that, and the transfer between international intonations, from sounding well or to murmuring. All of it depends on the skill of the presenter. You won't be able to draw the attention of the audience if you use the same tone always. I actually suggest you should join a course that we run. I could make you a gift. You could go to a class of 2 hours where there is a very good trainer who will help you to improve your tone. No microphone is used by the person, so it's impossible to translate it. Reading is a very helpful thing because reading helps you improve your intelligence. Well, if you read out loud, it will also help you improve your speech skills. But with poetry, it only works if you learn it by heart. You can certainly open books by Bunin, Dostoevsky, or Chekhov, but they have a lot of words that you will not use in your daily life. If it is poetry, and if you learn it by heart, it will be most helpful. And also literary games are quite important. It's important for you to have several files where you could keep new words. You could put them down there and to transfer them to your active vocabulary. Well, and I would also suggest you think about rhymes. For instance, when you travel by underground, you look at a word on the metro train wall and try to find something that is rhymed with it. And it is also quite good, for instance, to play games where you are to make words using various a set of letters. Thank you for a question. More questions? No microphone is on. Well, it all depends. You should certainly warn yourself against speaking in a poor language.
You need to think, if I were to listen to this, would I listen to this, honestly? How to surprise people? How to make it brighter? So these 5 items, to talk to people about them. So you need to learn something about those people. To say something new and interesting, you need to find it. So these 5 items help you to prepare jokes and emotions, to present yourself as an expert. And then you have provide some personal story. I'm really amazed at TED presentations. It's very much available. You can watch it on YouTube, and that's the speaker's manual. Because different people, including villagers from Vietnam, teachers, scholars, it's not about policy. It was invented 25 years ago by clever American guys who thought that every person is interesting. Like Yevtushenko said, there's no uninteresting people in the global. It's like planets. Each planet is unique. And because every person has something to share with the world, and every person has an idea that may be valuable for our people, they created that conference and they help those people speak. So you come out, you tell your personal story so that people get acquainted with you. Then you provide arguments, you make jokes, and that's mandatory. The audience must weep and must laugh. Well, we have Anuta Feder-Messer, who spoke about what people think before death. There's 8 million what people watch it. She works at hospices, and her mother organized hospices in Russia. How does it start? Mikhail, can you show it? Can you show her speech, how she uses the words of the Russian language, what she starts with? It's awful to work in a hospice. Everyone's dying, the process of dying. All the journalists come, and first thing they ask, could you tell us what people think about before death? Everyone is scared. Shall you listen? Well, that's 15 seconds only. Do you want to listen? Yes. And if you think about it, the first hospices were organized. Well, usually they say that hospices are special institutions where people spend their last days. Usually those are terminally ill people. Hospices exist throughout the world. In Russia, the first. Why do you tell people about that? It's all in the Wikipedia. Why do you tell people what they can find themselves? You need to tell them what you know, what you want to render to them as your own idea, as your own experience. She says, it's scary to work in a hospice. Everyone's dying. 2 words. The process of dying. 2 words. Journalists come and say, can you tell us about what people think about before death? Everyone's scared. Direct speech. And I said that everyone is interested in what people are thinking about death. But when you use direct speech, you change the intonation. So you can say, could you please tell us? And then she tells 3 stories, 3 miraculous stories about people who knew they were dying and about their last wishes. And 8 million people watched it, and that means something. So if you turn on any TED presentation, you will hear the structure, you will see exact words, emotions, and you will understand what a bright presentation is, and you will understand that there is a certain algorithm and rules. So why don't you learn those formulae and rules and speak as you can, and you can. I have 5 minutes more. One more question. No mic. My question is, yes, there are main presenters' mistakes, general mistakes, but there are some academic conferences when young scholars must use terms, and it's clear that all that makes the presentation cumbersome. What would you advise in this case? A very good question. Thank you. There are specific presentations. There are presentations to your peers when everyone understands the terms and you don't have to explain them. If you see that you have to explain the terms, that differs. It all depends on the capabilities of the audience. Usually, if you lose a few persons, you lose the whole audience, because non-listening is like COVID. If somebody is not listening, no, everyone stops listening. I never ask the people to switch off the phones. My task is to be more interesting than phones, and that's a very difficult task because your whole world in your telephone, and if you are in love with your short messages, it's very difficult to break that tendency, but I must be more interesting than that. Speaking about the terms, you mustn't overload your speech with them. I can say one thing. My elder daughter is a professor of maths. She works in Holland. After her PhD, she went to get her doctorate in Holland, and she wasn't wanted at her home university. She suffered from it very much, and she became a professor, one of the 3 European women who are experts in real classical maths. And she says that their conferences during their conferences, they laugh all the time. They make a formula and make a deliberate mistake in it. They show funny cartoons and pictures. Her last presentation was using the picture of a boy fighting a dragon, and the boy won over the dragon because he was smarter. And you need to think along these lines that I described. You can do that always. And that helps the military, the physicists, the technologists, the president, administration, governors, businessmen. Although the speakers are different, but the template is the same. You shouldn't be boring, and you should be understood. And if you are so much involved with terms that people fail to understand you, a good journalist uses stand-up. You don't know what a stand-up in journalism is. Part of the specific terms are only interesting if you explain them. When I'm in charge of a big training, I include such things because people are interested in everything new. I tell them, I will teach you how to do stand-up. And how the good stand-up differs from the bad one. And then when they watch TV, they see which is good and what is bad. Larry King made his career with that. He called truck drivers, and he asked them how they fill the tank, how they move along the road, how they see dangerous or reckless driving. And the whole of America was interested in that because people were speaking about their jobs. The balance is not to go too deeply into the details of what you're doing, but to stick to your subject. Yeah? It's very important. Don't be afraid of being experts. People are interested in that. People are interested in learning something new. So we need to observe a balance. And certainly, you need to rehearse your presentation with your family. I told some bankers, present that to your mom, and the words, the redundant words will lead you. You won't say roadmap, and it said, it's not on the agenda, because those are stupid words. That business slang is stupid, that lingo. You won't speak like that to a mother, and these words will go. You don't have the word a given task. Who gave it? This task. The Russian language must be recognizable. It must be spoken language, or just like you talk to one another. And when people use quasi-business slang or office lingo, that is a language that doesn't exist. There is a Russian spoken language, Russian literary language, and you must not speak that office lingo. Well, my time is up, unfortunately. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nina Vitalyevna. And I need 3 telephone numbers. Yours, yours, and yours. Once again, thank you very much, Nina Vitalyevna. Guys, stay here. The next presentation. And we're going on. And before we start the next presentation, I will remind you once again that we register you using the QR code. Please register and provide feedback after the lecture. And we are going on. Guys, before commencing the next presentation, I will do a small survey. Please raise your hands, those who had their first interviews. Guys? Okay, the first interview, about 6 persons. And now, of those who raised their hands, those who did not fail, fewer. Okay, the other had never come to an interview. Well, and those who have their resumes ready. Great. Why am I asking about this? Quite often, young professionals, especially graduates, have little experience with interviews, and that's a very important stage in your career development. And if you do not know how to be interviewed, don't worry, it's a skill that can be developed. And when you develop it, you will be certain that you will be brilliantly talking to HRs, to the employers, and get the job offers successfully. And how do you prepare yourself for an interview? How not to fail it will be told to us by good people recruiting agency head, coach, найдем своих online school for recruiting, Ludmila Ganja. Ludmila, the floor is yours. I'm inviting you to talk to this audience. Good afternoon, friends. I will start with a small story. I was at home, and everything that was on her mind was one thought: why should I go to work? Her whole body told her, stop. Nobody values you. Leave it. Resign. But one thing sounded in her ears, her mother's speech: where else will you make so much money? Don't you think that you can earn a lot of money by singing at concerts, being a singer? And all that was in her. And she sat and thought, what should I do? How should I live if my position of business assistant in a corporation and a good salary and a nice career is something I do not enjoy any longer, and I don't want to go to work? My legs won't go there. And the flu that I contacted tell me about one thing: I don't want to go there. Who is familiar with this condition? Raise your hands. Who has experienced this condition? This career was imposed on me. This position was imposed on me. The need to go there and to earn a lot of money was imposed on me because it's prestigious, it's tough. You will be successful there because this is a fashionable vacancy. You see, everyone is going into IT, and you don't understand. You will be successful, you'll have a car, an apartment, and sometimes twice a year you will have a vacation abroad. I work with such people every day. These people come to my recruiting agency to find themselves first and foremost. And what's the most tragic thing is that most often this happens during the initial part of their career. When persons just start their career, it's very important to find their profession, to understand that this is really my profession. It's not my father's, not my mother's. It has nothing to do with my ambitions, and it has nothing to do with my grandpa, who has always been that, and showed an example. But that's not me, it's my grandma, it's my mom, it's my friend, who brought me to this university. And today I want to talk about the most important thing, about your path, about your way. I'm a professional HR. I've been in this profession about 16 years. I open the true condition and the true potential to people. When we come to companies, we see that, for instance, an unsuccessful sales manager is trying to sell something. He fails. He is depressed. And in fact, he is unsuccessful. He is dissatisfied. He has a very modest salary because he's not glad about his success. And his success is modest because the guy did not understand what he is and where to go. When we come to a company, we assess people, their potential. And quite often, when we come and transform those people, we transfer them to other positions when they can disclose their potential. Miracles happen. At that moment, miracles happen because persons start to understand that he's all about system and papers, and he has always wanted to brush up this system, to fix it. And when he comes to an appropriate environment, he discloses himself and gets the best proposals from the employers and feels most satisfied. I've always wanted to be an HR. This is not my story. I can boast of going from one profession to another, but I had an issue during my lifetime. I graduated from the University of Economics, and then people said an economist was the most prestigious profession where you can make a lot of money. So I did that, and when I graduated from my university, after 5.5 years, I understood this is not mine. This is not about me. And then, absolutely by chance, I got into a company where people told us, look, the financial director is on a vacation. Could you look at the papers in the HR? You don't have anything to do anyway. But while I was figuring about those papers, I understood I will never return to economics.
So today, I'm an expert. For 16 years, I've been working in my favorite profession, and I've been quite a success as an HR expert. Quite often I have been told it's impossible. You have a background in economics. You should get a second higher education. I did get a second higher education, but I should tell you that it's important if you choose your career based on love. It's more important than anything else. And that's why the very first thing I'd like to start my presentation with is that, first of all, you should not think that after you graduate from the university, your life will be predetermined once and forever. Well, you may think that, well, now that I am a graduate, I have a career in front of me, but I want to return to the girl that I started telling you about at the beginning. She's a successful she was a successful specialist, but at the age of 35, she changed her life and she became a successful jazz singer. And now, Speaking about my awards, for you to understand it better, I was the HR director of a Gazprom subsidiary for some time ago. It was quite a big corporation by the number of its branch offices, and 12 years ago I learned how to manage my team online. Now I don't have too big a team. It's 12 people that are on the payroll of our company, and we've been interacting online, and they work in different parts of this country. So I'm quite proud of it, because this means that we can be loyal, we can work from any part in the world while yielding good results and being a success. And speaking about my accomplishments, I filled up over 800 positions or vacancies over my years of work. There was a time when I understood that HR is just an opportunity to help people understand what they are like. We know a lot about what people look like, but we do not know what people are like in reality. For instance, raise your hands, those of you who have been tested to try and understand your own personality. Quite very few people. And who of you have been undergoing continuous training to become better? It means that we always focus on what happens outside of us rather than inside. I'm a specialist in selecting personnel based on their values. It is so because I did not like really enforcing things on people, on making them do what I wanted them to do. If you understand that there is something that prevents you from making a success with a particular company, it means that you do not belong there. It doesn't mean that the company is bad or you are bad. It just means that you are different. I have also developed my personal projects about personal evaluation and personal evaluations and assessments. Quite often at the age of my presentations, I come up to somebody from the audience and tell that person about the person's potential. And then 2 or 3 years later, they come up to me saying, yes, I found myself with your help. Yes, please, come up. Let's give an applause to this brave young man. What's your name? I'm Daniil. Could you please tell me a few words about yourself, what you are fond of, what you are intrigued by, etc. It is sports. Great. Which sport? Now there is no sport. It was wrestling in the past. Did you have to drop it? Yes, because I moved to another location. And why did your life change? Well, it will happen when I join the college. What is your future career then? I'm going to be a vessel mechanic. Has it been your dream? Yes, the answer is no. I think your genuine dream was about becoming the best wrestler and the best coach in wrestling. That was your genuine desire. As a matter of fact, this story about a dream, just try to recall your dreams when a kid, what you were interested in when you were a child. This is where you should look at, regardless of the fears that you might have, saying to yourself, well, I will fail, well, I may not be a success. No, if you take the right decision, then you will be a success. Why should we choose a job that we will love? Certainly, I could tell you today how to prepare the resume in the right way, how to sell yourself in the right way, etc. But then you would have sold yourself for the rest of your life. And this is really horrible. You should try to look for a job that will give you good energy, so that when you wake up in the morning, you say, thank God, I'm awake now. I can do something else in my job. If this is not your feeling when you wake up, then you are making a wrong career. And you should develop the collider within yourself. Currently, the collider is asleep. It is torturing you. You have to be patient with your boss. You don't like your boss, but you believe that I am to make a career. And then you come up to me saying, well, it's easy for you to say something like this. You have a career made, you have the money made, and so on. But in my career, you think I am making both ends meet, I can earn my bread. But in a strange way, when somebody, due to certain circumstances, that person manages to open the door to an area that the person had never dreamed about, that it would be possible. And speaking about jobs, we'll conduct an experiment today for you to understand what it means to work for love or to work when it is needed. Who is ready for an experiment? Let all of you try and take part in our experiment. I know that there are always lots of skeptical people attending my presentations, but I'm quite practical. I'm not a theoretician. That's why I suggest just close your eyes now. All of you, close your eyes. Nothing horrible will happen to you in this room. It is quite safe. Now, close your eyes. And now, your best friend comes to you, inviting you to a concert. He says, I bought you a ticket to your favorite concert, to your favorite performer, favorite singer. Just try to imagine what will happen inside of you. So you start getting ready for going to the concert. You say, yes, I will go there. Just think what you are going to choose to put on for the concert. And now you have arrived at the concert hall. You are seated in a concert room, and there are people like you in the same concert hall who love the same performer. And now what will happen inside of you when he rises to the stage? What do you feel you like doing now? Nothing. Nothing. Well, try to share your thoughts with us. I don't have any favorite singer. Well, so bad for you. If it's really if I'm a fan of this singer, I can give him an applause. What you would like to do? I'd like to dance when that singer comes. What else would you like to do? I'd like to dance too. Do you want to dance every day? Every day in your life, dancing every day of your life, then this means that this is the career of your life. When it is the career of your life, it will be impossible to stop you. It will be impossible to prevent you from dancing. Every day you would feel like dancing in your career. And now let's get back to our reality, fierce and cruel as it may be. Now, just imagine a friend comes to your place and he says, I know you hate this singer, but just for my own sake, please come with me to the concert. You go to the concert, you are doing it willy-nilly. Then you arrive at the concert hall, you get into the concert hall, and then you say, oh my God, please, not, for God's sake, not this. But you sit down there, you start listening to the singer singing, but you understand that it's not yours, that you don't like it at all, that it's something that you don't like, and you want to pick up and go to the bar from the room, or you start thinking about the intermission just to get rid of this performance. How many of you have seen such things happening? And all the others, would you like just to be patient and to stand all the tortures just for the sake of your friend? So now think well, for whose sake you are standing a career that you do not like, for the sake of your family, for the sake of your business partner, for the sake of your friend, for the sake of your mother who has had this ambition for the whole of her life. And now it's up to you whether you want to dance in your career every day or to stand your career every day. Unfortunately, 80% of people are like this. They prefer standing a current situation, enduring the situation. They keep thinking that they have no choice. They keep thinking that they don't know what will happen to them if they do something, if they have doubts, when they don't understand what their real desires are like. When a friend of mine comes to me, you know, my mother said, one of them says to me, my mother says that a singer would not be able to make good money. Another friend of mine who was a businessman, he had a business in fish processing, by the by, and he lost lots of money in that business. But then he said to himself, he said to me, you know, my mother has always been telling me that drawing paintings is not a good career, and it's not for men anyway. But now that friend of mine works in Germany, and he is opening his painting school there, where he has been advocating painting, ensuring everybody that one can paint good things at any age. And now let's go on. Now I'd like to cover the stages that everybody is to come through to identify the career of one's life. So we need to understand what is to be done after we make a decision. First of all, now we are to prepare a resume, and this is the most interesting part of it, to prepare a well-selling resume. Could anybody explain to me what it meant, or maybe you have your personal experience? Unfortunately, the person from the public is not using a microphone. Great. What's your name? Lyubov, which means love in the Russian language. Amor. Another answer, but without using a microphone. That is to say, we should prepare a selling resume to sell our talents the best we can. So what needs to be specified in a resume to make it well-selling? First of all, it is good to attach one's photograph. Well, this is a separate story, a story apart. This is the most important thing, and I will focus on it now. A photo is just to show our portrait to the future bosses. But now speaking about selling resume to show our strengths. Which of you know his or her selling points quite well enough? Oh, it's once again the strong sex. Now, okay.
I like it to have a lot of men on the podium. Yegor, Kamil, excellent. In your opinion, what are your strengths? Intellect and charisma. And you? Attention and finding a common language in any situation. Super. Excellent. In your opinion, is that enough to pretend to a position that you are dreaming of? No. What else is missing? Labor. You mean in your resume you write everything is fine with me? Well, I need to get education. Education, fine, accepted. Well, first of all, you need to be to have self-sacrifice, otherwise you won't be successful. Well, a lot of things have to be developed, and versatility is very important. Yes, thank you very much. So, you're great guys. You can write it. A versatile personality. That's what should be on your resume. Let's applaud to the guys. Yes. We indicate when we make our first resume, we cannot pretend to have experience because we don't have it. But we have certain achievements that we can really show. We can, for instance, tell people about how we organized an event at the university or academy. We can talk about your achievements or skills, not necessarily at the university. Maybe it's the first place in a rowing competition. And that means you are a successful person, and you have achieved something that you are proud of, and it would be like a litmus paper for the recruiter. So if you were successful in some other profession, and sports is a profession, you will be successful in your other profession. That's what the HR people and the recruiters think. So please indicate your achievements in your resume and certainly your strengths. It makes sense to think about that and to write about your strengths, what helps you to interact with people, what distinguishes you among others, how you are different from other professionals or other candidates that will pretend to this position. Okay, if we are talking about salaries, should you indicate the salary in the resume? What salary you want? Yes. How do you assess this salary? I mean, 100, is it a lot? You need to monitor the labor market and look at the vacancies and add a little bit to that. I like that. I like that. Add a little bit, yes. Maybe that will pass. Okay, really, to be objective, because quite often we come across a situation when person do not adequately perceive themselves in the labor market. We see that he's a good profession, but he assesses himself below market for some reason, and the employers certainly use it quite often. Why don't you get a good professional for less money? That's great. And there are also situations when we understand that the ambitions are overestimated and the salary level does not meet the level of knowledge, and that then the HR manager is really sad. He looks at you and says, wow, that's a good person, but he perceives himself inadequately, and then you will be refused. You need to assess the market value. How is that done? That's the analysis of the market, of the labor market. You need to understand how much are the experts like you worth in the market. And certainly when we consult people individually about their careers, we help them learn that skill for the rest of their lives, so that the persons can objectively assess and reassess themselves when they are promoted. For instance, they get additional education or improve some of their skills, and then they can pretend to a higher salary. So, I want to work with you a little bit. So, why did you come to see me and to listen to that? What problems do you want to solve in this context? I would like to get info from you. You've come to listen to me. What is the demand? What's your internal demand? What problems would you like to solve? Are there any wishes? How to find something appropriate, an appropriate job the first time? I will answer that. Any more questions? Well, the rest have just come to listen to me. To kill the time. Yeah, let's kill time. Okay, if we are to kill the time, that's all right. About your question about how not to make a mistake. If you came to a company and you liked it, sleep on it. Don't hurry. Just try to get a feeling of how the recruiter behaves, how you interact with them, how comfortable you are feeling as a personality. If you understand that something bothers you, the body never lies. Believe me. And when we work with the candidates that come to an interview, the best thing is when the candidate feels comfortable, they are relaxed, the posture is relaxed, they are ready to maintain a dialogue, they're not scared. And that is the job for the recruiter, to watch the candidate. When you come to a company, you need to understand that I feel comfortable here, I feel good. That means you need to stay. If you understand that something is going wrong, well, it may have seemed to me that there's something wrong. It didn't seem to you most often. It's a life hack that you could use and use it all the times. If we are talking about a good photograph, a business-like photograph, yeah, there's quite a lot of pictures here. And all of these are from real resumes by candidates who respond to our vacancies. Funny, ain't it? What professions are there? What do you think? A sales manager? Any other? Striptease club administrator? Not bad. A Pechorichka chain salesman? Not bad. An accountant. Which is the accountant? The fourth one. Okay. May I disconcern you? All these people wanted to be an HR managers. Can you imagine? Which of these would you hire? The second one. Okay. We will follow your recommendations and we will look closer at those candidates. Let's talk about professional pictures in your resume. This is what it shouldn't be. So what photos will not be acceptable? The wedding pictures, that's top 10, by the way. That's come up on the resume. It's either a bride or a groom in their wedding attire with a bow tie and so on and so forth. That's people in hard hats, in winter hats and so on. That is unfitting. When part of the face is closed with hair so that you can only see one eye, that is unacceptable because we as recruiter assess the personality. We don't need studio pictures, especially when girls like postures like that in their resumes. Girls, I will breach a small secret. 80% of recruiters are women, and it doesn't work with us. So when you publish such a photograph in your resume, it goes to the dustbin. Okay, selfies. We saw that in this slide when people were making selfies and send that with their resume. That, alas, is not for the resume. Maybe for your friend, not for your employer. When people are half-turned, you see half of their faces or these pictures of dreamy personalities. I love them. I understand that, but that's not for a resume. When you're in the mountains, we're so nice, we're so fancy and dreamy, that's not for the resume. During a tour, when people are in the sea, in the bathing suit, that's top 5, by the way, in a bathing suit or swimming trunks, friends, talking about resumes, you need to understand it clearly that you are going into a business environment. Your resume is your suit in which you came to a business meeting. What suit you are wearing? Well, it would be strange to come in a bathing suit. It would have been strange if I wore a bikini today. Not quite correct. So think about that. When you compose your resume, it must be a simple business photo. It must be business style and with adequate hairdo, with adequate emotions. If there's a smile, that's fine, but not the laughter. Some people are really laughing on their pictures. Now, about making an impression. How do you make an impression on your HR manager? Or what do you need? You don't know anything about the company or about me. I'm at my computer, I'm doing something, and you live on the other side of the city, and you are thinking about how do I enroll in this company? How do I meet Ludmila? How do you get to me? Yes, both things are important. Really, you are seen as a potential employee using your resume, and you must be very serious about it. You must be as serious about your resume as about your life. Mistakes equal a failure in your career. So it's very important. It's very important to define the style of the resume. So if you are going to a serious company, so the style of the business language must be present. If you are going to an IT company or a creative company, the style would be absolutely different. So it must be authentic to the company that you are going to. It would be strange if an employee in a business suit would come to enroll as a DJ. Everyone would look at him. Oh, by the way, I had that experience. I was a student at that time, and I put on a wrong suit at an interview. I wanted to be a waiter, and I put on an expensive suit. And there was a disconnect in the administrator's mind, and he invited Director General and said, "A lady came to see you. She says that she wants to be a waiter, but we suspect she wants to be an administrator." I was shocked because I wanted to be a waitress. And I was told, we can't provide a position of an administrator to you. Can offer you a position of the senior waitress. Well, and I said, yes, yes. And everything depends on how you position yourself, how you present yourself, and what clothing you will wear at the interview. That's also very important, whether it matches the companies. So they meet you by your clothing. And the resume that you make, you analyze the level of the salary, then you write about your skills, experience. If you don't have any experience, it may be your knowledge in different areas. I've studied this software by myself and I attended these courses and I can indicate it. But again, this should match your proposed position. Okay, talking about our position in the resume, did anyone here had a feeling that they passed the interview with flying colors but was not taken? Yes. Why do you think? I will come down. Why do you think? I was answering the question in an unsure fashion. Well, I've answered the question, but my tone was wrong. Okay. Any other cases of such nature? Some experience like that will reveal it. Is it my hypothesis or the official standpoint? Well, I was too tough for the position because I was asked about things that I did not want. Well, the questions were much lower in level than I expected. I said, I want so much. And they told me, we will call you back. And once, well, again, that was an official point of view. They wrote to me that they found a person that was more to their expectation. He was more assured. He was agreed with more things. And that person probably never doubted. These are the stories. Yeah, we'll talk about why the recruiters refuse people. The recruiters, I'm told, are such mean people. They always refuse and they forget about the candidates and don't provide any feedback. And the candidates are waiting. And you are thinking, why isn't there any response?
Быть успешным.
So everything should be okay. However, so your dressing style may have influence. It should be classical or casual. If you don't know what is meant by these styles, just find more details on the internet, because quite often young people come to interviews unprepared with wrong clothing. So when we prepare individual interviews, we just recommend how they should be dressed for interviews. We also say that the most widespread colors are white, gray, blue, dark blue, and brown. All the other colors will definitely not do. Speaking about the recruiters, certainly recruiters are really hard people to deal with because they keep torturing us during interviews. They keep asking questions that we don't like. Could you please share with me the questions they asked of you that were difficult to answer and that were really doubtful? I know why they were asking that question of me. They were asking me when I am going to have a baby and to ask for a leave before giving birth. What are the other questions that made you really difficult to answer. Tell me the 5 weaknesses that you have. Any other disturbing questions? Well, during one of the interviews, they told me, please tell us about something. Then there was a pause. Why are you keeping silence? And that was quite strange to me. However, the outcome was not quite good. And there was another interview that I thought was pretty queer. Everything seemed to be okay up to a certain point, and then they asked me, could you please tell us about your school years, how you started at secondary school? Could you please tell us more details about your biography? So it looked a little bit strange to me. And certainly there were also questions, what can you visualize as far as your future is concerned in 3 years from now? Thank you. Any other strange questions from recruiters that you have been you have received? Which of you would like to get ready for the interview in such a way that the recruiter could definitely understand that you are a well prepared person and it's impossible to make you lose temper? Could you please, would you like to know what kind of difficult questions recruiters may ask of you, just to be on the safe side, to have a kind of safety pillow, so that when, for example, you read a good manual, you know how to get ready for difficult questions. So which of you would like to get trained in this? Perfect. What about the others? It looks like all the others do not care about the success during interviews. That is to say, the others therefore believe that, well, I would go to an interview, would answer a question, and then it doesn't depend on me. I will go to other interviews and so on and so forth. Do you mean it's boring for you to get ready for interviews? Okay, I see. So you want an experiment to be conducted, something new. Well, I can assure you that it's your first interview that you go to, then it would be quite a surprise to you. You would be shaking with fear, shivering with fear. You would be terrified with everything. Now, those of you who'd like to be on the safe side, you have this opportunity now. You may send your queries to my address, and I will send you our checklist that contains 100 questions from recruiters that would help you get ready for any questions. How can you understand that you have failed in an interview? Well, quite often they tell you, well, we'll call you back, and after that, they never call you back, those bad people. Yes, it may happen. Or we'll draw you a line. Or it is quite a common story when they promise to call you, and then never call. And another thing is that if your interview lasted for less than 30 minutes, it means that you did not arouse the recruiter's interest. In that way, in that case, the recruiter will try to do his or her best to make the interview as short as possible, and that in that case you can know that you may forget about this position. And from the response of your recruiter, you could also see if your recruiter is bored. So this is a kind of test paper for you to understand that you should not you should not hope that you did well during the interview. Those of you who are interested in getting my 100 difficult questions, you can write to me on WhatsApp. And you can ask for this list of 100 questions. Today, this list is the most relevant one. It is quite well updated. We prepared it based on our experience and expertise, and we can offer it to you. Then, speaking about other questions, what are the questions that you would like to ask regarding the career of your dream, to better understand which career you should choose? Which of you would like to get a career, a position, not because of salary, but for love of this career? Okay? And frankly speaking, I believe that all of you only have two options: a career for love or a career for money. But what about combining it? A career for love with a good remuneration. I am in my career for love, but my salary is also good. I had it from the very beginning, so this is just an option, another option. When you start in your career, you get your cookies from various resources, including the career opportunities, success in your career, etc. So if you do want it, you may come to a personal session with me to understand how you can advance in your career of life. So for all of you who have attended today's lecture, I will give you a special discount to help you with choosing a right career. And those of you who will repost my lecture, it will be a different story. I will choose the best repost of my lecture, and then I will provide the best poster with my personal session free of charge, absolutely. So what I want to say is, the more good things you give to the world, the more good will come back to you. Thank you for your attention. I hope that to some extent I have really helped you with getting what you need in this life. Thank you once again for your attention. Well, it's been really very warm and heartwarming session. After this presentation, I think the audience will forget about its fears of first interviews. And we are moving now to our next speaker, who will tell us about one of the most important priorities, and this is the manager's priorities in developing the company's strategy. Well, the strategy of development helps the company in moving forward. Without having this development strategy, it's impossible to scale up the business, it's certainly quite important who prepares the development strategy. As a rule, it is the senior management of the company, but it is also important that the workers of the company implement this policy in the right way, and it is young people quite often who can contribute to developing this business in the industry. And now I feel privileged to invite Dina Karajakova, the CEO of VNB Consulting, reader of International Finance and Accounting of the St. Petersburg University of Technologies, and a leading lecturer of the All Russian Znania Society. Yeah, welcome. Hello, everybody. Are you still alive or a bit sad, a bit tired? Are you ready for everything? Yes. Well, a young specialist should be ready for everything. I am 100% sure. They presented me in such a good way that probably I'll be able to shorten my introduction then. So what are we going to discuss today? You might think, and I can see that there are young people from the industry present here. It's not about you, and it's not for you probably, because the company strategy is something a bit far stretched for students. However, I do hope that after you spend an hour with me, you will be able to go out with the key message I want to convey to you. I have listened to Nina Zvereva's presentation today, and I remember that strategic development is of major importance to everybody. The employee cannot separate him or herself from the development of his or her company, because the company should work like a good clock. So you want it or not, but you do get involved in the life of the company, and the more you feel part of the company, the more you feel that you are inside of the company, the better it will be for you. So this is what I'm going to tell you about today. First of all, I wanted to ask you a question. All those present in this room now, I have several questions or several sub-questions. First of all, please raise your hands, those of you who believe that your core activity in your current position with the company will include simple functionalities, that is to say, just an employee after you graduated from the university, and then 10 years after graduation, I am still a rank and file employee, even though I deserve something better. So 3 people have raised their hands. Thank you for being honest. And now, those of you who believe that after 10 years, you can see yourself as a leader, team leader, squad leader, or deputy CEO or assistant director, etc. Thank you. There were lots of hands raised now. I'm quite happy that you are so ambitious. Now, another question. Is there anybody in this room now who is going to be an economist or accountant after graduation? No, there aren't any. It so happens that when I conduct training sessions, I mostly teach division leaders how to distinguish money through the positions. I had a situation when leaders of structural divisions came to a training session that I conducted, and one of them said, well, it looks like this life is full of deception. I used to be a rank and file employee. Then they gave me some leading position and started just involving me in planning processes. But then they promoted me to the CEO's position. As soon as I signed my new contract, they started requiring that I should know how to prepare strategy plans, etc., and so on and so forth. How can you tell me why this deception occurs when you are not trained as an economist, but then when all of a sudden you become a company leader, you need to know how to assess profits and losses, how to foresee the future, the financial future. And when it comes, for instance, to transportation costs, if they are higher by 30% than what was planned in advance, could you account for this? And in fact, that complaint is quite genuine, because normally people are not trained as economists. However, as far as I'm concerned, I wanted to become an economist when I was in high school, and then I understood that certainly if I took interest in economy, then I decided to join the university as an economist. How does it happen? Why does it happen that people who were never linked to the company's finance are to learn how to understand financial aspects very fast once they become a company leader? Okay, just imagine I don't want to be a company leader. Do I have this right? Yes. I know lots of specialists who are quite good at their positions and do not want to manage people at all.
Because that's too much responsibility and emotion, and sometimes it's not covered up by the salary. You get a little bit more, but you work twice as much. It's incomparable. So it's not everybody that wants to be a boss, and that's normal. So why? Professionals who are not bosses, why do they need strategy? And they do. And it's because any strategic purpose of the company, any strategic goal, even getting profit, is achieved by professionals. Those who are sitting at their workplaces, those who drive trams, those who steer and navigate the vessel. Yeah, okay. You navigate a vessel. The fishermen who catch the fish. And it's an important issue. We can't say that here we're talking about the company strategy, and here am I who is just performing my functions. We can't say that here we talk about the strategy for the industry, and here are you who just came to sit in this room. Surprisingly, even if you don't do anything, you are related to a strategy. And any actions or inaction results in something, and that result is assessed through profit or loss, through revenue or expenditures, and that's a strategy. So, our strategy. A strategy is something big, usually. It's a plan for the company development for 15 years, and generally we build a trend graph. It's usually a very big graph which shows how the company will develop, what will be happening, how many clients, what markets, what equipment will be used. And we suppose all that, we forecast that for 15 years. Please recall how old you were 15 years ago. We develop strategies whose result will be assessed in 15 years. Interesting, ain't it? And so 15 years ago, somebody in some office was forecasting how your company will be developing, the company that you will come to, and how it will be looking in 15 years. The accuracy of that calculation and that forecast cannot be assessed because, well, I can't work with this tool. Yeah, thank you. I understand it, but I can't master it. It doesn't work, and it cannot work like that. If you were 5 years of age 15 years ago, my eldest son was 3 years old 15 years ago, and you cannot suppose from that moment what will happen in 15 years. That's very difficult because we live in a very complicated world. My childhood, well, on the condensed milk tins, you had prices engraved on them. Then you could plan for 30 years ahead, but we don't have that any longer. We live in a different situation. And the reason why it doesn't work, well, everything changes all the time, and you can see that. The economic factors. Probably, if you don't have dollars, you look up the dollar rate every morning, because if the dollar goes up, you understand that your financial position will change. The political factors, do they affect us? Yes, they do, very strongly, and we can see that. When 2 years ago we had that situation that we shouldn't be talking about too much, but I can provide the internal stats. The logistics grew by 40% at production companies. In 2 months, the transportation costs grew by 40%. And we come to stores and say, the sneakers have gone up in price. Oh, it's not the store that raised the prices, it's logistics that behaves like that. Resources, and the resources are limited. We can forecast that we will mine coal, and it may come to an end, although we're told it won't. But it doesn't come to an end worldwide, but it does come to an end at this particular mine, and you have to dig another mine. The same refers to fish. The fish is not going to come to an end globally, but probably we should be more careful about the fish that we catch. Innovations. 15 years ago, we could not even suppose that any energy-consuming equipment will be used on an industrial scale, and that is happening now. Okay, a pager. Does anyone remember what a pager is? Those who are young probably don't know what it is. Recently, I told my children how unhappy I was at the university because I didn't have a cell phone. It's only father who had a cell phone in my family, and I had a pager, and parents wrote messages to me, to my pager, go home. And the market conditions, they change all the time. The company priorities, internal priorities. The company wants to go to the Far East market, for instance, and in 3 years, something may change, and we'll all want to go to Europe. God grant it, or God forbid it. And the priorities change. The general director is new. The top management has changed. And we start thinking along different lines. And the new broom sweeps in a new way. God forbid you from the change of director general. If you're a top manager, probably you will be kicked out because you are not a man from his or her team, and they need to bring their own team. And that impacts the strategy too, and the internal changes that happen, and all that results in, well, usually a strategy is a document of 300 pages, and everyone is trying to read it at a meeting. Of course, they have read it before the meeting, but when the strategy is accepted, it contains a lot of data that is simply accepted. And in 5 years or in 10 years, everyone compares the forecasts that we planned and what's happening now. And they see we've come to a wrong result, and that's painful. For instance, we want to go to Sochi, to fly to Sochi. Once I mixed the planes in the airport and I took the wrong plane. I don't know how I managed to do that, but I just turned to the wrong corridor, and I was sitting there, and they told me something, and they said Ulan-Ude, and I understood that that wasn't my destination, not because it's a bad place, but because nobody expects me there. And there was a lot of hullabaloo. I was being looked for in one plane, and I was certainly in the wrong plane. But that happens. So we decided to fly to Sochi, but we landed in Ulan-Ude. That's within our strategy when the fact doesn't match your plan. The actual doesn't match your plan. There is a solution, although this is very painful, and this solution is being very well developed. When we do not talk about a strategy as a document or as a number of tables that show what KPIs we're going to reach, but as a process of strategizing. What does that mean? That means each time, on a quarterly basis, we come back to our strategy, to this big document, and compare ourselves and find out whether we're going the right way and whether we should pursue the same strategy or should change the trajectory. And it's a lot of variance. It provides a lot of variance for the result. Otherwise, you can't manage the enterprise. Okay, you are thinking, is that about me? But that's important for each one of us, because if you look at your lives as a project, as a company, it's always possible to build your own strategy, and it's always possible to calculate and to forecast where you will be in 2 years and whether you want it or not. In 5 years, in 10 years, yes, it will be unreliable, but you can manage it. But because unless you see that you cannot manage your life. I had a very interesting business project. You asked about whether you want to work for love or for money. Everyone wants to work for both. So I entered a startup. And the startups are not about money. It's about love and the possibility of money. So I joined this startup, and for 6 months we developed it actively. I managed it and I directed that project. And then I understood something was wrong. In principle, something was wrong. And because it was a startup, we had reporting, but we didn't accumulate that. We didn't uh, archive it too much. And when I sat down and calculated that my employees during 1 year, on average, were getting 4 times more than I did, well, funny, ain't it? We got together to a meeting. Well, there were several initiators of those meetings, and the initiators are owners, and the owners are the engines who pull others forward. You do not sleep, you pay the residual amounts to you because you have a hired team. And so we got together and I said, we have two options. We shall either disband this team or we start to earn for the administrator's salary, because it's a strange startup where the administrator gets 4 times less than others. And as soon as we saw those numbers, we made a plan. We found out what clients we should call, what we are to do, how do we improve the product that we're selling, and the numbers show you whether you are going the right way. You cannot do without numbers. And the same happens in your life. If you go to work and you feel that you cannot buy the boots that you like, the question is whether you like the correct boots or whether you have the correct job. And if you like your job, you ask a second question: why can't I buy new boots? And what, not why, but what for? Why do I want to buy new boots? Well, it makes no sense to live without numbers, not because I'm an economist and numbers mean everything for me, but it's because our reality is like that. The objectives-based management is the basis for building strategy. When you come to a company, you will get salaries and bonuses. You get your salary for coming to your work every day, and the bonuses you get for being a super good guy. Or you will have a different system that will be called KPI system. That's not a swear word. That's a basis for European bonus system, which is being introduced in this country. Both are nice, and both are related to objectives. Objective-based management. The company must have a purpose and an objective. The company cannot develop without an objective. Otherwise, we will be not able to assess ourselves. We have a purpose, and that's a plan of where we want to be. And we get the top managers together and we say, this is our strategy, this is our purpose. And we see what we will do year after year. Then we make details during each year, and we ask each department manager, what can you do for the company to reach its purpose? That's purpose-based management, and we get different and often contradictory response. Well, for instance, you know that the main economic indicator of efficiency is profit. It's the main indicator of the company's efficiency. And when you think whether you should invest in this or that company, you should look at whether it's in profit or not. Profit, that's revenue minus costs. And when you set a task of increasing the profit, the sales will say, we need to sell more to get more profits. You sell more, the revenue is higher, the profit is higher. Logical, ain't it? Yeah, more or less. The production says to have more profit, you need to improve the quality of the product. Logical. Yes, it is. The quality went up, the price went up, more people buy it, the profit is higher. Yeah? Cool. Depends who is the buyer. Yes. Sometimes people won't buy your product at this price, at a high price. They won't be able to. 2 years ago, the Microsoft sneakers were worth 2,000 rubles, and there was a demand for this. Now they are 28,000 rubles. The demand went down. Why? Bad sneakers? No. The quality does not meet the price. Not everyone can afford those sneakers, and that's the price, and the price manages the market. HRs say, we need super qualified experts. Let us headhunt and find the best experts who will be result-oriented. Shall we get the profit? Yes. Yes, but very good professionals are worth twice an ordinary one, and that's sad. So a conflict of interests exists. We understand something very well within our own department, but we hinder one another when we interact. And that contradiction is resolved through a planning system. Through a planning system that is embedded in budgeting. In budgeting and planning, well, you understand those terms. And we've come to a very good issue when we have to define what the objective is or the purpose is. Write it down, because it will be useful when you define your own person. If you never set a purpose for the company, you will set it for yourself. Does everybody have a purpose in this life? Yes. No. The path is nice, but your way should bring you to a bright future, not to any other place. So the purpose is a planned result, that we can achieve using our resources. And that's a universal definition which matches corporate purposes and our own purposes. For instance, I want to have a car. Well, I don't. Because I sold my car, I don't need it, because there's so many traffic jams. But suppose I want a Mercedes car for 15 million. Do I have the right to? Yes, I have the right to want it, a Mercedes. But if I just say that I want a Mercedes car worth 15 million rubles, that's not a purpose. And if I say that in 2025, in January, I want to buy a car at 15 million, that's a purpose. And I need to understand, do I have enough resources? Because you may want it, but you need to buy it. And there are different ways to do it.
I may recall that I am married, so I may try to get the 15 million from my husband. If I'm a married woman, why can't I try to do it? Well, then I may recall that I am just an independent woman, so I never ask money from my husband. In that case, I will not go to see my husband, but rather I would look for it in my bank account. But just imagine that if I only make 50,000 rubles every month, it may take my whole life to make enough money. The comment couldn't be heard. No mic. The main point is also my husband should have the money at that very moment. So it is also always a matter of choice, how I want to get this result. I may get a loan for, say, 500 years if I can make it, or I sell a kidney. So basically, it's possible to find a solution. So I try to look for my resources, and the same happens with the company. If it wants to arrive at the goal entitled X2, what does it mean, X2? To grow by a factor of 2. It's only possible if nothing was done before, if your equipment was utilized by 10% only. But if you have been using your equipment by 100%, then it's unrealistic to get alone. So it's very good to have such a dream, but the way to implement it may be quite challenging. So we can see that the top management likes to discuss goals which they like. They like discussing growth, double growth that they like, but when somebody tells them that it won't work, they get upset. So we could certainly have a dream for 8 hours or so, but there should be a realistic outcome. What else was I going to mention? When we talk about the existing and potentially available resources, it's not a new tool at all, and it's a very good subject for further exploration if you want to become an efficient manager. But there is a very dangerous point about it. I've seen lots of projects aimed at saving money in production. Everybody starts with files. All the files should be of the same green color. Nothing should be kept on the desk. Everybody is to wear pink shirts, etc. When we do it, then nothing happens, because in fact here this saving means that we need to use our resources for the areas where we can arrive at the optimal result. And therefore, we just match our resources, whether we are using them in the right way. For instance, how many hours do we have? Well, maybe some people work for 12 hours. For instance, I work like this. Sometimes at night, late at night, I have it. But then if people work too much, they don't have an opportunity to recover. And when they don't recover, they do not work well. But then, what's the purpose of coming to the work after I spent half night working? I would just sit in my office hating everybody. It was my choice to work at night, but then actually you could sleep in daytime. Well, sometimes, certainly being the CEO, I may skip my work for a day or so, but I can't do it then. Lean production means an efficacious distribution of resources. And once again, 8 hours is the normal duration of our working time. We should properly distribute our resources to make the most of it. And if we don't do it, I work at the university and from time to time, and twice a week I read lectures. So I have been warning my students against not working during classes. I told them that if they have not recovered, they should not come to my classes at all. I will not punish them for that. But if they come to my classes, they should be working. For instance, if I have 20 students per group, but only 2 of them turn up for my class, I don't mind it because I'm still paid the same salary. I always tell my students, instead of having a nap during classes with me, you should go back home and sleep at home. Or you may go to the cinema. But if you come to my classes and fall asleep, I feel that you are not interested in my lecture. I get upset. If you don't want to come to my class, you may go to the cinema and you may take your girlfriend with you to the cinema. So this is what is meant by the efficacious use of time. Yesterday I was speaking to my coach, and I also have a shrink that I deal with. I told them that if somebody sends me a message to my Telegram, what's up? Guys, I do have a shift of groups. I understand. Then in Telegram, everybody communicates using Telegram now. And now I really hang there for a long time if I switch it on. And then they tell me, you work too much, then possibly you should stick to the following rule. You work for some time, and then you start surfing the internet. But I cannot kill half an hour for 30 minutes. Then I say, no, I can't plan spending 30 minutes on the internet. When it happens just by chance, it's one thing. But when I suppose to plan it, well, then it's quite different. There was a time when I wanted to give up using a smartphone and using just an old-styled key phone. Well, when unplanned spending of time occurs, it's most important to be aware of it. For instance, I have a friend, and she is a very close friend of mine. I think girls will understand me. That girl works as a financial director at a large company here in St. Petersburg. And I am the CEO responsible for developing course programs. So our task is to make sure that the money is not wasted. It is true that we do need to save resources and money. But sometimes she calls me saying, well, I will not have time to come to a meeting with you. Come over to my place. Well, then I say, no, you'd better come over to me. Then finally she manages to persuade me to come over to her place. And there I see that she is using a therapy therapeutic medicinal armchair that costs 150,000 rubles. Can you afford such an armchair? The answer from the audience was not. And I can assure that even though my salary is more than 150,000 per month, I cannot afford it because I'd rather start saving money for buying a Mercedes. So they closed that project, but it was not allowed to pay her bonus of 150,000 rubles, and that's why her CEO just bought her an armchair worth 150,000 rubles. You probably will understand now what friendship between women means. Well, they did accomplish a big project. Well, say we should really be able to cut costs due to insensible spending of money. When you start working, you will finally arrive at the understanding of the importance to understand how much you spend, what your travel costs will be if you need to travel somewhere. You have to plan all this, and this will be part of your budgeting process, and you will have to choose whether you need to try and achieve the strategic goals of your company, or you should increase your time schedule. You should extend your timelines. And now, speaking about the purpose of budgeting, well, I will not read it out to you now, but the key purpose of budgeting is creating conditions to achieve the targets of the company's development. In this case, we need to try and understand what we personally should do to arrive at the goals and objectives of the company. For instance, as far as the revenue of the company is concerned. So when speaking about budgeting as a process, we need to plan the costs to ensure the operation of the company's divisions. For instance, our purpose is to have a gross margin of 100 million, but we need to plan how big the costs will be in that case to be able to arrive at a profit of 100 million rubles. If it costs too much, then the revenue of the company should be higher, because you can make 100 million after investing 1 billion rubles, or you may do it after investing 10,000 or 100,000 rubles. So we should be guided by the strategy that we develop ourselves or somebody else develops it for us. So we think sometimes that strategic development plans are something too far stretched. However, what we need is weekly plans and monthly plans and annual plans to be developed based on the company's strategic goals. And now, instead of a conclusion, and you will have time to ask your questions, if any. So I should say that unbreakable strategies for 15 years ahead do not work anymore. It could only be possible if we close our society to the rest of the world, but I don't think it will ever happen. That's why we need to learn how to plan our activities every day. today we need to recollect what our strategic goals are like and think whether our current activities are going to bring our future results closer to us. If our purpose is to make enough money to buy a Mercedes car or to make $1 million, etc., we should think whether what we are doing now is helpful for our strategic goals. If it doesn't help us, then we need to skip it. If that is to say, we should think how to get rid of unnecessary activities. We should channelize all of our energy to arrive at the key results. So the strategies are developed from the top, but they are to be implemented by rank and file employees. I will be quite happy if immediately after graduation you start your career as a company manager. But most probably you will be rank and file employees, and then when you start working for a company, you will take part in the implementation of strategic plans, and the success of your company will depend in particular on your personal efforts. Otherwise, it would be suicidal for the company if its employees do not help it move on. I think at this point we can finish. Are you still alive? Oh, usually girls, after a long time of dieting, answer very feebly. So if there are any questions, I am ready to try and answer them. If there are no questions, then just give me an applause if it's the end. Well, thank you very much, Dina. After your presentation, I feel very much like reviewing and revising my personal strategy. Well, we'll be in touch then. And now, guys, we move on to the final presentation of today. Once again, I would ask you, just like Nina Zvereva has suggested, please get ready, please get logged. Log in, please, using this QR. And now, please, we have discussed various supra-career skills such as business etiquette, behavior, presentation of projects. So those are various soft skills that are extremely important to be efficacious in the market, in the labor market. So what are the necessary soft skills and what the individual plans for developing soft skills should be like? I invite Natalia Gross, who is Deputy Director of the Center Creativity and founder and chief of educational project Economy Using the Right Language.
Good afternoon, everyone. I feel you're tired by the last presentation. Me too, a little bit. I walked around the forum during the morning, so the conclusive subject of this blog is how to assess your level of flexible or soft skills. Can you tell me what soft skills are? Yes, you're right. The skills that you will need at work. Any more ideas? Universal skills. Yes, you're right. And we'll talk about that today. First, I would like to start my presentation with my background and what I have to do with this subject. My name is Natalia Gross. 10 years ago, I graduated from the High School of Economy. I am an economist. Then I worked in international companies in the sphere of internet marketing, e-marketing, where the emphasis was on hard skills. And I decided that I wanted some individual development as a leader, as a manager, and to do my own projects. So I ended my career in the companies and I set up my own non-commercial organization that carries out educational projects. This year I got second education in pedagogics because it's very important to know how to render ideas to different students, school kids, adults. And during the last 5 years, I implement the All Russian Projects economics in simple language. We've already trained 12,000 students, and the president awarded us a medal last year for one of the best educational projects. My team and I also teach soft skills, and we have a number of education programs. So during this master class, we will be talking about assessing your own soft skills, how to develop your soft skills so you understand how you can assess yourselves when you come to your first internship, and how others will assess your hard skills and soft skills. And if the audience are those who are looking for candidates, you may find out how to develop your employees. And if young professionals are listening to it, you may think about your individual plan. By the result of this master plan, you may compose your own development plan, what skills you should acquire and improve apart from those hard skills that you get at the university. I will start with telling you about assessing soft skills. Well, there are soft skills and hard skills. How do you assess hard skills? Yes? Any more options? By the subject. Yes, you're right. Exams, qualification exams, tests, or how you mastered a skill. So you mastered a skill and you passed an exam and it may be assessed. But soft skills are more difficult to assess. Nevertheless, when hiring people, there are 4 universal methods. That's the competency interview. When you come to an interview and the interviewer talks to you and you can tell them your vision of your soft skills, or they may make a conclusion about your communicative skills. We'll talk about each tool. Well, it's classical assessment and game assessment. When there's several candidates for one position, there's a competition and you select the best candidates. And the last one is psychological testing, when you do certain tests developed by psychologists, by the HR experts to understand your soft skill level. People may think that those tests do not work, and that's one of the opinions. Nevertheless, there's the opinion of people who develop those tests and opinion of the companies that use them. So there is a certain range of opinions, and you may make your own conclusion based on your experience. But it's very important to know what's happening in different companies to be more successful. And if you come to a place where the HR pays a lot of attention to these tests, you need to work to understand how they work. And let's start with an interview on competences. When they select a future employee, there's a competency model for each vacancy. It usually includes your hard skills, that is, what you should know about your work, and the soft skills, that is, the supra-professional skills that you should have. And usually you know the competency model in advance. You know what the hard skills and the soft skills should be. The advantage of this method is that you can prepare what to make the focus on, but the candidate may deceive the HR expert and present themselves better than they are. And then it turns out that they don't have some hard or soft skills. Nevertheless, it's a possibility to show your best side, or the classical assessment. Do you know what format it is? Nobody participated in that type of assessment. The classical assessment, well, maybe you applied for Vladimir Potanin's charity grant. Yes. Assessment. It's a competition. It's a challenge. When you come and there's a role play format and several candidates are there. The classical assessment means that there's several candidates. It's like a competition. And the competency model that you apply for, usually you don't know all the hard skills and the soft skills that you should meet. For instance, as an example, I hire civil servants and I need introverts who will not be stringent leaders because there's a pool of work, and I understand this is the psychological type that I need. And you don't know what competences you should have in advance. And each time you stay with a different group of your competitors, and quite often major international companies enroll 100 candidates for an assessment, and there's 80 tasks, and each half an hour you go to a different team and you are given tasks related to your job, and you should demonstrate your hard and soft skills, and the assessors observe you and make notes. And the main advantage of this method is that the candidate will not be able to prepare and to adapt their soft skills. For instance, you are in a team of very rigid leaders, and your communicative skills are poorly developed, and you could not render your correct idea to them. Or you are in another team where there's no leader, and you have more leadership skills and better communication skills. And the main advantage for those who assess people is that people behave naturally, and you could hire personnel that will match the objectives. And this is quite often with beginners because they don't have any experience, and the soft skills may be a decisive point during the selection. For instance, you need very attentive people who pay a lot of attention to details. For instance, after the university, I worked in a company that processed data, and attention and an ability to mind all the details was the main soft skill, because if you made one mistake, the company would lose a lot of money, and that was one of the most important skills for the job. But if you're interested in an assessment system, there are books on how to pass the assessment, and when you apply for a position, you may think about what competency model is needed there. Sometimes it's a role play format. How is it different from the classical one? It's simpler. No stress. Less stress. Yes. And you disclose more abilities. Yes, the game format is more intended to create a relaxed atmosphere, and quite often the tasks may not be related to the essence of your job. They may more be related to a team formation or to see how you interact in a team. So that's an alternative to the classical assessment. And the last item on how you can test the soft skills is not only the psychological tests. Here there's some skills and tests on that slide. You can do those tests yourselves. In some companies, after the university, I was asked to take certain tests. There's a disc, for instance, that finds your psychological type. There are 4 types of people psychologically, and some international companies also take that into account. There are, for instance, people who like to dominate, people who like stability, the people who like creativity, and the 4th type of people want instructions and every detail. And also there's a number of companies that do not only take the hard skills and soft skills into account, but also the psychological types. Now, I would like to talk to you about the competency models, and we'll start with beginner professionals. So if you look at the market in any sphere, all the competency models for the beginner professionals are built in such a fashion that 20% of focus is made on soft skills and 80% on hard skills. Why do you think this ratio? Any ideas? Well, because a professional must know what he's doing. If you're an accountant, you should know the accounting. Thank you very much for answering. This is a description of a professional. Yeah, thank you. That is so, because the professionals bear the burden of all the work. Because quite often the managers are responsible for the overall management, and the accountant is keeping accounting, and so the emphasis is on hard skills. The diploma. Well, we are talking about the hard skills, not about diplomas. Yes, I will tell you. For instance, the programming skills, you may study it at a university, or you may do it by yourself You can study the programming language and be cooler than those who studied at the university. It depends on the industry. If you are talking about civil service, there everything is very much regulated, and you may be 100 times better than a person from a small town who graduated in management. You won't be hired. That person will be hired. But if we are talking about programming and IT, for instance, developing mobile games, they may pay attention to your portfolio. You may have no formal education, but you've produced several cool games and you have a portfolio. Or if you're a designer, if your portfolio is really cool, you may have no education whatsoever. Well, we'll be talking about that later, how to develop these soft skills. But by way of example, I can tell you about my portfolio. I started with my first year at the university. I was interested in marketing. I started to working as a volunteer journalist, and during my first 3 years at the university, I collected 300 articles and I launched my own blog. And when I showed my volunteer cases, I got a medium-level position. So you can start with some volunteer initiatives in an area that is of interest to you. But I understand what you're asking about. It doesn't, well, that's not for every sphere, probably. Not for every area of activity. I know that a lot of guys who learn to be physicians, they work in drugstores, or they work as volunteers in
Для врача тоже же важно опыт насмотренности и ведения пациентов. Здесь вопрос про то, что кейсы собрать не так сложно.
Shelters for poor, and maybe if that will demand time and nobody will pay you for that, but you will be working for your portfolio.
Ну, я бы так не сказала,
I wouldn't say that, because
Нет, я же говорю, пока ты учишься на врача,
while you are learning to be a physician by working in a drugstore.
Нет, еще раз.
Once
Врач,
again,
например, делает
a physician, for instance, prescribes a medicine, and quite often the graduates from medical colleges don't know any trademarks, and the patients come to them and they tell them about the active substance. And quite a lot of people who medical students who worked in drugstores, they know everything about trademarks. They visit the conferences, they learn what medicines are efficient, and that helps their careers. That's what I'm talking about.
I mean physicians, exactly physicians. Well, being a physician, you prescribe drugs to your patient, and if you know the effective substance, the active substance, there may be different brands, but the active substance is the same. For instance, there are chocolates made by Alenka, those by Milka, those by Neste. But the active ingredient is always the same. That's the patients, however, are guided by brands, by brand names, and in this case, having knowledge in related areas is very helpful. And if somebody wants to be a head doctor after a medical career, then it's important also to go to a law school, because a head doctors of clinics and hospitals are supposed to know enough about law, but let us not distract from our core, from our mainstream. So the next stage in career development is management. As a rule, managers have several people that report to them, and in that case, managers should have 50% of soft skills and 50% of hard skills. In that case, the fact that it is a 50-50 model does not mean that managers are less professional than specialists. It means that managers are to keep developing their soft skills. And if it is senior managers, that is to say top managers, what kind of proportion would be preferable? In that case, it is 80% of soft skills and 20% of hard skills, because they are responsible for developing company strategies, for promoting companies' business, so they should have a good command of communicative skills. They should be able to bridge all the gaps in the company structure. They should know how to correctly assess people and so on. And now let us talk about the development of our soft skills. First of all, as far as theoretical knowledge is concerned, it is through classical education, reading various books. For instance, if you are aware that you need to develop communicative skills or speech skills, then you could try to find the best books on the subject, or you may watch paid courses online, and after that you may start getting practice in it, because theory without practice is impossible to achieve. That's why if you practice your theoretical skills, it's the best way of all. And after that, after you apply your knowledge in a particular area, it's important to try and analyze, for instance, your mistakes, if any, to think it over. And also it is important if after obtaining certain skills you try to convey your skills to the others, because in that way you will kind of digest, kind of assimilate the skills that you have got, and you can improve them through teaching others. Have any of you heard about the 70-20-10 model? Well, in fact, there are several ideas as to the origin of this model. The model was developed more than 50 years ago, and it is believed that one of the ideas, one of the bottom lines there was that there was an assessment carried out at a big company, and so they were asking the employees about their skills, and they said that 10% were through formal education, 20% education from others, and 70% from on-the-job training. The bottom line is that to master one's skills, it is good if 10% is formal education and 20% from others and 70% from on-the-job training. You can prepare your skills card to know how to move to the next level. Lots of university graduates know where they want to specialize. For instance, you may visit the Headhunter website to see what skills are required. For soft skills, it may vary depending on the position. However, after you are clear about the soft skills, you can plan it, you can prepare a list of skills, and it would be very good if you turn to mentors to use the experience of the others, the expertise of the others. For instance, if you want to become a department head, you may ask people from your region about their experience. You may try and track the professional career of the person. You may try and collect 20 or 30 resumes of the people who have already been promoted to this position, and now analyzing the experience of the others, you can understand what is the entry point for a particular vacancy. It's no secret that many universities across Russia organize accelerator companies to select students from universities, and quite often they specify that they only want the graduates from particular universities. That is to say, they prefer those students to all the others, and in that case, many bachelors of arts prefer the opportunities that the universities offer. For instance, in Moscow, our University of Mira has opened a center of international interchange. In 2020, they opened a school where they selected students from all the best universities to train specialists in diplomacy. There are other universities where they have very strong volunteer movements and public activities. If you choose that university, you should be aware of it. In my case, the university that I went to, the focus was on the four major consulting companies, and so after graduating from my university, we were having more opportunities to be employed by the four major consulting companies. However, there were other advantages available. That is to say, it means that when you get into a particular environment, the people around you can act as your mentors and help you with developing your hard skills. Everything that I have just mentioned is certainly quite good, however, will not be fruitful unless you implement and train your skills in real life. Now, quite briefly, I wanted to tell you about the processes to develop your soft skills. First of all, it is business plays, case championships. Recently, there was a championship in St. Petersburg that was called the Digital Breakthrough. The idea was to develop products in artificial intelligence and other related areas. When you work for a team, you develop communication and leadership skills. You also learn how to present your solutions, how to speak in public, and so on. The next point is project activities. There are lots of opportunities today for students and young people to get access to grants to become entrepreneurs. And if you have not graduated from a university, you may try to get soft skills through project activities, get a grant for your business, then you can develop your skills, your organizing skills, and besides that it can be communication, emotion, artificial intelligence, and you should know how to identify people who can deceive you, who can cheat you. For this purpose, emotional intelligence is most important. Also, sport activities are quite important because they teach people how to work in teams, and there are lots of various games available today to develop people's imagination, such as crocodile. And this slide shows case studies of competencies required for working in uncertain situations. It shows that in 10% of cases you look for books to learn from other people's expertise. In 20% of cases you ask your colleagues about their experience under particular circumstances. And in 70% of cases, you need to be based on your own experience. You should try and apply everything that you have learned in particular cases. Basically, here you can see a table that shows how to develop your personal development plan. At the beginning, we said that there are all types of positions such as specialist, manager, senior manager, but here you can develop a plan for 2 years ahead to forecast which competencies you need to develop to move to the mid-level specialist position and then to the manager's position. That is to say, to become an expert in your field. Sometimes lead specialists turn into department heads, but many international companies believe that lead specialists are to be experts who accomplish things that requires competences, while the leaders should have a lot of soft skills. They may probably do not know too much about the core business, the special business, but they should know how to build teams. And this plan shows that after 24 months, in case you plan your activities properly, you may grow from the junior specialist level to the senior specialist. So this was quite a brief introduction to soft skills. We have discussed the tools to assess soft skills. We have learned other things about it, and I hope you'll be able to develop your personal development plans. And there is a universal 4K 4C model. It includes creativity. For many positions today, creativity is important because then it is communication with your team and business partners, and then I forgot the other two C's. Cooperation, that is to say, skills in working for a team. And the fourth C, maybe you can Google it, cooperation and... No, not punctuality. It should start with a C. It will be your home task. So you can level up all these skills for yourselves because they are universal. Well, we have come to the end of my presentation. If there are any questions, you are welcome to ask them. Let's discuss them. Well, probably everybody is tired now. Yes, I believe the guys have leveled up their skills today to a great extent. So it seems to be the end of it. It means that tomorrow you will train us and teach us. I really mean it. Well, guys, our meeting has come to an end. I thank the All-Russian Znanie Society for organizing this event. I want to thank our speakers, and I thank the audience for having stayed in this room up to the end. Thank you for coming. You've had an opportunity to level up your skills. Bye-bye.